Hello, children. I have no idea if this is working. This was a royal technology pain in the ass, and this is by no fault of the requester. But he wanted a real live response video, but with higher quality rather than me just doing the audio quality with my crappy camera. And I can do it now, guys. I have the technology, but for the huge capital investment I put into this and how it is so fucked up. But Cappy, everyone... Yes, I'm not some nerd that just stays at home all day. I have shit to do. The price goes through the roof if you want one of these high-end quality responses, which this gentleman paid for. And he has a very detailed list of everything that I want to go through, so I make sure I do not fail him in regard. About to make a title payment, the greatest generation video for $100. I'm a man who likes to keep things simple. It's the technology, it's not you. So to recap, would you kindly include the following extra steps? 1, list the BitChute link at the top of your video description so people can find it. I will do that. Intro your video with the letter I've written below, all right? Watch a 12-minute clip with the clip played visibly in the corner of your video. I think I have that down. Pause, react, blah, blah, blah. Read aloud the scrolling message at the end, commentary, and all in about 30-minute video. Yeah, except for the 45 minutes that I had to fuck around with. So there's the link. Hi, Aaron. I've been watching your videos since 2014. I want to let you know you were a small influence on my decision to become an engineer. Good. Happy to hear. I very much enjoyed the book Bachelor Pad Economics and find your SoundCloud podcast a convenient way to be entertained while doing mindless yard work. Thank you for the mindlessness. Thank you. Thanks to the years of funny commentary and practical advice. For my issue, you often sing the praises of the greatest generation as I once did. However, now keep in mind, do I really sing the praises or do I just hate on all the successive generations? However, as I go further down the rabbit hole, how our once great economy became so fucked, I see that generation to be the origin of many of our current problems. I'd like to hear your opinion of this enlightening video because on BitChute, at this titled, Was the Greatest Generation Really the Weakest? Even if you disagree, I think you will find the video intriguing. All right, so we're going to play and start. And by the way, this is fucked up watching this guy. I don't know who this is. I don't know what philosopher this is, but this is weird when he moves his mouth, and it's like this creepy old man. Not to besmirch what he's about, because I haven't listened to what he says. I'm doing this all wrong.
The World War II generation calls itself the greatest generation. Now,
I don't know if they call themselves that, but let's just move on.
People are going to say, oh no, they don't call themselves the greatest generation. Well, let me explain something to you. I'm a writer. A writer writes for the market. When Tom Brokaw wrote The Greatest Generation, his book about the World War II generation, the World War II generation snapped it up like hotcakes. And I know those people very well. Now, my uncles who were in World War II, I love dearly. But remember, we're talking here about a generation, not about your beloved grandfather. And as a generation, that group smashed.
I got to pause it for every 30 seconds because censors.
Else the high heavens. They call themselves the greatest generation, and it has always been their attitude. This generation...
I disagree. I don't know. I've met plenty of non-veteran World War II people, or non-veteran greatest generation people. I don't see that hubris or arrogance. I don't know where did he poll. I mean, it's a statement that he's paying them like boomers. Boomers, I have heard. Oh, we're going to save the world. Yeah, okay, my generation. Oh, we're going to change lives. Oh, we're going to stop the planet from melting down. Oh, okay, I've heard that. But, you know, now maybe it's just because when I was younger, the World War II generation were my grandparents' age, and they were just maybe wise and old. Maybe just old. They didn't have time to be braggarts. But since I've been alive, the most humble generation alive was the World War II generation. I wonder what my great-grandma Clary, she lived until I was 10. Boy, she beat the cancer racket. And she was, but I was 10. She gave us candy. What am I going to think? Oh, wait, she's a horrible woman. Gave us candy. It was, what generation is that? I don't know. The Woodrow Wilson generation. I have a feeling we'll get into Woodrow Wilson later. But I did not see any hubris on the part of my elders. Parent elders, not necessarily my parents, but, oh, yeah, teachers. Yeah, oh, yeah. but not the World War II generation.
Was utterly without the slightest trace of moral courage.
Gotta disagree with that too. They fought World War II. And it wasn't like the ladies weren't sacrificing back at home or, having their husbands or their sons die. Well, the sons would have been a different generation. This is his position. All right, fine.
I was watching a discussion on immigration, and one old guy in his paper hat got up, World War II paper hat, and said, "I fought a war so that we wouldn't be keeping people out of this country." Well, I don't think most of the people who fought in World War II would say they were doing it for open borders. But what is more important than this old clown is that there were a number of other people from the World War II generation in that audience, and not one of them contradicted him.
That doesn't mean they agree. Maybe they're old and they don't want to have a conversation about politics. I
have no moral courage. He was saying what the establishment wanted said. The conservative establishment wants cheap labor. The liberal establishment wants minority votes. And nobody in that dog-like generation was going to contradict him. But that was the line of conservatives.
No offense, I know this is a completely subjective. This guy sounds like a Southern yokel idiot. We might have similar politics, but I don't know who this guy is. But right off the bat, I saw this guy. He was at the VFW, and he didn't agree with George Washington on this one particular matter, and nobody else at the VFW disagreed with him. Where's those little children at? Sorry. All right, that was unfair. But he's taking big... Look, if he says, hey, the 1965 Civil Rights Act, if I recall correctly, also says, all right, we're not importing immigrant labor, we're not having immigrants coming just from Europe anymore. We're coming from... they voted for it. If you started citing polling data, things like that, I'd be like, oh, okay. All right, there's a point. And there is, because the bill passed. You could make the argument with Social Security and the New Deal. All right, now, the World War II generation, as it were not old enough to vote there. You'd have to go back to whatever the generation was before that, because that's what, 37, 38? With Social Security and the New Deal. And you could say what we want to call it the flapper generation, kind of like their version of the baby boomers. Hey, we're doing the Charleston. We got crazy, skirts and wigs. Oh, Charlie. I could see the roaring 20s creating a generation of spoiled brats that then would vote for... But even before that, you had Woodrow Wilson with the income tax and Federal Reserve. Right? The general trend is people want to vote for things that sound good on paper, and they don't rarely think through it all. But then to say, oh, this VFW guy didn't pound down, and the VFW guys didn't pound their fist down and say, yes, we're for open borders. He's extrapolating policy on a generation, of which the only evidence I've tendered is, well, they voted for it. That's about it. Or they didn't vote for it. They voted the politicians in that voted for it. He's saying one guy said something and no one corrected him or voiced an opposite opinion. Well, maybe these guys are old and they don't care. Where was this?
Because conservatives were still dominated by the greatest generation, and they were without moral courage. The group that calls itself the greatest generation is divided into two general groups.
I disagree with they calling themselves. That's like the millennials calling themselves the most spoiled generation. They're never going to call themselves that. I haven't seen it. So far, he's striking out. I haven't heard any policies or voting where I could see, yeah, this came law under them, right?
And they are our established political left and political right today. Let's take a look at what formed the World War II generation. They called themselves dog faces. The reason they called themselves dog faces was because that was what basic training was all about in World War II. It was aimed at beating every bit of resistance, thought, anything but obedience out of a man.
It's called the military. I don't even know. I never heard dog. Who dang, where the little boys at?
They said the military makes a man of you. If the military made a man of you, then military training had failed. Military training was aimed, quite specifically, at making a dog of you. Then, after 4 years of obedience training,
not to mention getting shot at in the Pacific in Europe. But, okay, Jessup, whoever, I don't... He's got 6 minutes left to really pull this around. I don't like what they're shitting out dog faces.
And I mean that in the exact sense that a dog gets obedience training, except the dog is treated a lot better. 50% of the greatest generation then took advantage of the GI Bill of Rights.
Right? Right? So? Let me guess, this is bad? They took advantage of it? Oh, God.
Rights to go to college. Here were a bunch of people who had already been trained to obey and worship authority. They then began to obey and worship professors.
What? Dude, come on. Really? You wasted your money on this? There may have been a reason we drafted a bunch of guys and put them through military training. It wasn't to indoctrinate them. There's this guy with a funny mustache, had an accent across the Atlantic. There was another guy with another funny mustache, circular glasses, funny hat. They kind of bombed one of our islands. This guy listen to QAnon? Is this? I'm not even gonna look this guy up. This is a great way to start the day. Guys, God Almighty.
The professors taught them what we call leftism, rule the world by intellectuals. Intellectuals should rule the world. And, of course, every pipsqueak professor thought he...
Okay, that's a great version of the Nutty Professor. Is that actually Jerry? No, it's not Jerry Lewis. That looks deadly like the Nutty Professor from the movie. That's a good costume.
Was one of those intellectuals who would be planning the economy, rehabilitating criminals, and pulling guilt payments out of white people to the colored world. That is the essence of leftism.
Whoa! I mean, it's true, but you use a little bit. See, am I right? Are you picturing Jessup now? They came for all women. I go, where little Jimmy at?
Leftism is ruled by the people like Lenin and Trotsky, neither of whom ever did a day's work in their lives.
Okay, there we go. He's right about that. That's true.
And the World War II generation came to worship these. And...
Okay. This guy is such an idiot. Well, then why did we wage a war on Korea and Vietnam? Why did you have Reagan help fighting the Contras over in Central America? What about JFK and the Cold War? Was that that way we supported the communists, except for that whole cold and sometimes hot war that was going on against the communists? Does this guy know any history?
That is called leftism. Then there was the right. The right worships anything in a uniform. They want more money for the military. They want to beat their chests. They run around in their little paper hats.
So true.
And so the greatest generation broke into two groups, one of which worshipped anything in a uniform, the other of which worshipped professors. This sounds simplistic, but when you have people who are beaten into being dog-like and then go to college and listen to a bunch of professors talk about how professors should rule the world, that's pretty simplistic. I never saw anything complicated about them. I know these people. I was raised around these people. I saw the world that they produced.
Yeah, the 50s and the 60s. Yeah, that was horrible. 4.25% annual growth, no debt. I mean, you want to see a funny debt chart. Look at all the debt we accumulated in World War II, and bam, it's gone in under 10 years. And then we fought Korea and Vietnam at the beginnings of Vietnam by that time. Still, what? Here's the problem. None of this bears out in the economic numbers. I mean, I have empirical proof that if you want to talk the past, the current 3 generations, I know what 5 generations. The World War II generation was the highest performing, at least economically. I mean, unemployment, economic growth, labor productivity. If you want to use it, no debt, balanced budgets, surpluses. That's what we Okay, Jebediah, you keep telling me. Keep putting some grits in your mouth.
I saw their weakness. I never saw any strength in them. They claim that they were great fighters for freedom, side by side with Comrade Stalin. You can tell by the tone of my voice I don't like these people.
I wonder if he knew about, I wonder what his opinion is on the Finnish-Soviet War. If he even knows it existed. I don't know.
I watched them give everything away. I watched them destroy everything I cared about. Mm-hmm. So this is personal as well as political. When I was in college, these guys would say, well, we've got to surrender. When we were talking about the South, the Confederate flag, the race situation, anything. But they always had this, I'm tough, I'm a real man, I was in World War II, and I say we got to surrender.
Maybe you were hanging out with that rare douchebags. Maybe that was just your family.
Because it's the tough, realistic thing to do. This made me a little sick for people to be demanding surrender as a macho proposition.
And then again, I see, that's the selection bias is painful. Okay, within your family or within your group of friends in academia, that's what they said. I'm looking more at, like, policy-wise, what did the country do as an action? You fought Korea and Vietnam. Ronald Reagan, I don't know if you knew Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was against the communists. But this is, I gotta charge, I've never said I have to charge less. I think I'm gonna have to keep charging more. Because I charge more in this case I had to charge a lot because of time, and I had to learn something new. And he was fair, he did pay for that, and so going forward now I have this. But come on, guys, really? You know, it's like cleaning the sewers sometimes. This is like dealing with a turd. What do you think about what this turd says? Nothing. I think he's speaking shit. First thing in the morning.
Since then, I've gotten pretty used to this idea that people call love hate and so forth. But at the time, when I was young, it was pretty disgusting. The World War II generation came along and saved the world, they say. When
they did! They did!
When they came along, there were 2 famous totalitarian societies. One was the Soviet Union, which they adopted as their own. The other was Nazi Germany. By the time the World War II generation finally got old enough so that its palsied hands could no longer hold on to our national polity, a third of the world was under the control of the communist tyranny. A third of the world, about 1.5 billion people.
Yeah, and did they not try to stop it with the Korean and Vietnam? And not to mention all the subterfuge, you know, like the spies and maybe not a hot war, but an underground secret war. You know, the whole James Bond genre. Oh.
That is the way that they saved the world. Instead of having 2 deadly enemies, totalitarians in Germany and Russia, they produced one gigantic, united, worldwide tyranny.
Maybe it's the people who let it come in. They voted for it because, you know, to quote Turd Flinging Monkey, what's that you say? Free shit you say. Tell me more. And now Venezuela. Could it just be the lazy people of the world wanted, oh, what? Free shit? Okay, sign me up.
That was their method of, quote, saving the world, unquote. In the 1930s, the white man strode the world like a colossus. After the World War II generation got through backing down on everything, always beating its chest while it did it, white people had battered white syndrome. That is to say,
I wouldn't say back then. I'd say more like today. Yes. Well, I think that's more frustrated white chicks that can't get laid, so then they go join BLM. But that's I wouldn't even call that race. I call that psychopathy. I'd call that Marxist politics, which did come from academia. Oh, God.
We have become so beaten down in one generation.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
And in 2 now, also the generation that the greatest generation raised. They were so incredibly cowardly that white people have a battered white syndrome.
It's not the boomers, white people, let's get rid of them. It's not that. It's Marxism. It's socialism. It's give me your money. And they use whatever angle or trait they can get. Oh, your gender. Oh, your race being one of them. But more recently, have you seen, oh, I have a mental disorder. No, you don't. You're faking it. Oh, I believe I'm this made-up gender. That gender literally didn't exist 5 minutes ago. Right? Dude, this is my, when you say hick, a redneck hick, and there's nothing, like, I'm not talking farmer or flyover country. When you're talking a lowbrow, still pissed off about the Civil War, simpleton, this is what I'm picturing. I'm not even going to look this guy up because I don't care. And immediately go into the race thing. It's like, don't you think socioeconomics would start communism? It starts with economics. Marx, Lenin, Trotsky, those guys, the underpinning philosophy, which is this just give us your free shit. And then as the social sciences, you can't call them social sciences, the liberal arts, social sciences, the humanities evolved. It just became this, what would you call it? Fabricated, overly orchestrated feint or feign. It's like, look over here, and for my next magic, like it's a very intricate, very pretty web of lies, nonetheless. When the corporate, we just want your money. And they can feign, oh, it's about race, or it's about injustice, or it's about gender, or it's about non-binary, or it's about disadvantage, whatever trait, religion, I'm oppressed, and on any variable. Can't you see that's just one of the many tools in the box, and it's all just take your money? And I was going, I don't know, white people, the white man. It's too early in the morning for this shit.
You can rape our women, you can invade our borders, you can insult us, you can demand, in fact it is required that you demand that there be a final solution to the white problem.
He makes I know this is not deniable. There is an anti-white bias, but just as there's an anti-male bias, just as there is an anti-straight bias, just as there is an anti-Christian bias, just as there is an anti-mentally healthy bias, just as there is an good mental health bias. He's blinded by it because he goes right to the race. I mean, it's true, yeah, today, but it wasn't like 1945, when did it end? August 25th? And August 26th, oh, kill the white man. It didn't. The fact he fails to identify this phenomenon for what it is another. And I get the tinge of racist Southerner hick here.
And white people just grovel. All that came as a result of the group that declares itself the greatest generation, the World War II generation.
Like the boomers and Xers had nothing to do with this. Like it's just poof. Like all right.
Obeys. Period. So young people today call themselves left-wingers or right-wingers, but they're absolutely mystified by the fact that we have broken ourselves in Vietnam. We broke ourselves.
Oh, you do recall that, do you?
Even worse in Iraq, and we're still doing it because one group, the group that calls itself the conservatives, worships the military, and therefore if the military is in lower Kubanga fighting for nothing of any use to the United States, but of great use to Israel,
I'd love to hear this guy's opinions about the Jews. Are there lizards on the Denver International Airport?
And the group that worships uniforms will be all for them, and the group that worships professors wants the military cut back so more money can go into social programs.
Yeah.
That's the split, the insane split American policy inherited from the Greatest Generation. And right-wingers and left-wingers, at least those who now are not from the Greatest Generation, are finding the whole thing absolutely mystifying. What on earth are we doing over there? And if we weren't over there, why are we not defending our borders? Well, the liberals don't want to defend our borders because they won't be guilty to colored people. They don't want to defend the United States at all. And the other group, the conservatives, are for anything the United States does militarily, although they're not particularly touchy about protecting our borders. In fact, we are the first society in world history to say that the military has no business protecting the country's borders.
Yeah, just pausing that so we don't get the
borders. That's insane, but then again, the entire mentality we got from all that obedience training and GI Bill stuff from World War II, the whole thing is insane.
I want to know what this guy, I guarantee he collects a government check. I guarantee you. And you could take the Ayn Randian approach, well, I paid my taxes. This does not sound like a competent man who's making tons of money selling books. All right? I'm a competent man, and it's a hard slog selling a decent enough amount of books that you can live off of it, trust me. This guy, oh, what's his book, a pamphlet? And then the World War II generation, and then poof, everyone hates the white man. Does anyone remember the 80s? You know, Earth, Wind, Fire, Prince, even Billy Ocean, huh? Everyone had a good time. Michael Jackson, The Cosby Show. We were all getting along pretty well then, I think. Fuck it, never mind. Just this simple view of life.
But we're going to have to go back to basics and see why it's insane. Last week I did a program called Dicta.
Oh, did you do a program there, Skippy? Was it on NPR or CNN?
Don't interfere. Call the authorities. That was the motto of the World War II generation, the group that calls itself the Greatest Generation.
All right, now I read this. Okay, here, this is not me. Asia for the Asian, Africa for the African, white countries for everybody. White countries for everybody. Everybody says, oh, there is a race problem. Everybody says this race problem will be solved when the third world pours into every white country and only white countries. The Netherlands and Belgium are just as crowded as Japan and Taiwan, but nobody says Japan or Taiwan will solve this race problem by bringing in millions of third worlders and, quote, assimilate, unquote, with them. Everybody says the final solution to the race problem is for every white country, only white countries to assimilate, i.e. intermarry with all these non-whites. Okay, let me explain something. Dude, buddy, you have got to be more intelligent than this dope. All right? This is a very simple-minded man who, I don't know how I just went through it, how he connected, I don't understand how he connected World War II into don't intermarry. I don't understand this. Right? But in his grit chomping, drooling out of his mouth mind, this makes this is exhausting. And all we got, and how many minutes? I got 41 seconds left to read on this shit. What if I said there was this race problem, and this race problem would be solved only if hundreds of millions of non-blacks were brought into every black country and only into black countries? How long would it take anyone to realize I'm not talking about a race problem, I'm talking about a final solution to the black problem? Oh, so he's against Nazism, but he's a fucking Nazi. The final solution? Do you know history? This guy doesn't. You need to know history, where this fucking idiot is going. I want to know this guy's opinion about Jews. And how long would it take any sane black man to notice this, and what kind of psycho black man would object to this? But if I tell you that obvious truth about the ongoing program of genocide against my race, the white race, liberals and respectable conservatives agree that I am a Nazi who wants to kill 6 million Jews. Dude, this is so... He has a point in that, yeah, there's an anti-white bias. I'm sorry, he was using that as an example. They say they're anti-racist. What they are is anti-white. Anti-racist is a code word for anti-white. Not necessarily. Dude, I am for all races having their own cultures, doing their own thing. If you want to set up an ethno-state, go ahead. All right? But there are... He thinks, oh, everybody out there wants to kill the white man. Everybody out there. Have you got a black friend? Have you made friend with a Latino? Maybe hung out with an Asian? I didn't charge enough for this. I didn't charge enough to have my brain assailed and assaulted by this idiot. And it's not because there are some legitimate concerns if you happen to be white, especially with BLM and Antifa and an anti-white hatred. Well, I don't know if there's a pro-white hatred, but anyway. But man, it's the simpleton logic. It's just, I don't know. My brain is shot now. He went from 0 to 60 without hitting any of the numbers in between. I fail. Is that it? Thank God. Okay, now what did you want me to do? Oh. List the BitChute link. I'll put that there. Intro your video with the letter written below. 12-minute clip. Did that. Read aloud the commentary. The guy's an idiot. The way he came about concluding what you can painfully see in front of you with an anti-white bias in schools, academia, and modern day today. Okay, you could see that with your own eyes. I get it. You can go to school. Oh, you got privilege, which obviously I disagree with. How that connects to the World War II generation. How he skips over what they did to fight communism, and how just like, what about the boomers and Gen X professors and teachers? Right? I don't know. I don't see the connection at all. And my brain is trying to forget everything he said because it was so painfully stupid. But going back and looking at his logic or the gaping lack of it, I'm sorry. I gotta write him off as a stereotype. He sounds like I'm gonna get my guns. Dude. It's not. Who successfully implemented communism? Who's the first group of people? Called Russians. Don't know if you knew. If you look at their skin, they're white. Asians were like, China's the second major. They were this isn't, you go where we have quote unquote the most, if you want to call it, hardcore communism. The Scandinavian countries white. Oh yes, Latin. Everyone's tried it. African countries have tried it. Now Venezuela's suffering from it. Communism is not a racial thing. It's human nature. And it's whether you can get the dopes of humanity to believe it, just like we have here in the United States. And then you come down upon Earth, it's a race, we gotta stop it. It's like, no, you're misdiagnosing the problem horrifically. And rather rapidly taking and then you blame it on World War II. Dude, this was a dumb video. That was dumb. All right, there you go. See you guys later, toodles.